Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Are we ready? Are we ready for Hobbits? Are we ready to do another Hobbit slam, Dave?
Yeah, let's slam it. Double slam dunk.
We're going to Hobbit slam in the Lonely Mountain.
That sounds gross. Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched The Hobbit, There and Back Again, a Fanedit Part 2. Second part. 2 parts. This is the second.
Thorin, you gave a promise.
You brought upon them only ruin and death.
You've won the mountain, is that not enough?
Now, we defend it.
All your favorite characters are back. Me.
Yeah.
Dave. The Hobbit.
The Hobbit's there. All right.
You know he did a Hobbit slam in the Lonely Mountain. They stayed there for a few days.
Yeah. I mean, that
he pooped somewhere.
And dragon shit. There's dragon shit in that gold. Before we get started, so this is part 2. Go back and listen to part 1.
That reminded me of an old, random old meme rant here. There's a Power Rangers parody video. I forget who does it, but it's on YouTube. You can look it up, and one of them says, as they're all powering up with their medallions, one of them says, "Dragon shit!" And when you said dragon shit, I heard that in my mind in that voice.
Dragon shit is a funny type of shit. It'd be like lizard shit.
Yeah.
Probably.
Only huge.
Like this long, yeah. Lizard shit is weird.
It's weird looking. Yeah, I had a pet lizard for a while.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a fan edit. It's from 2024. We covered the first 2 hours in part 1, which already came out. You should go back and listen. This is from our Patreon producer and the person who did the edit.
Yeah, the editor,
Max Logan Boyer
himself.
Yeah.
And,
thank you, Max.
Yeah, where do they go to locate? Where would one go to locate a theoretical fan edit such as this?
Yeah, you could contact Max at their username on Reddit is bmax, like B letter B Max Logan, all one word. Look it up in the fan edit subreddit if you want. It's, again, There and Back Again, a 2024 fan edit. I think there's been a few fan edits of the Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
Because they were in desperate need of a shortening.
Yeah. A trimming.
And
a hedgening.
Yeah. Little snips. Snips.
Yeah, a little Edward Scissorhandsing.
Yeah. Where we left off.
Eddie Sizzies.
Yeah. We were in the woods. And the Hobbit climbed. Yeah, he climbed the trees. And there's like a literal fade to black that I cut at, basically. He gets nabbed by the spiders, fade to black, and that's when he
wakes up.
That's where we're starting. This is the second Hobbit film. Desolation of Smaug.
This is the Desolation of Smaug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that was kind of tricky to say.
It is. They shouldn't have named it that. And then he puts on the ring. He can hear the spiders talking about like Joe Rogan or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I was really hoping they would. They just talk.
It's just science. It's genetics.
I do like that all the spiders are talking about is eating stuff and being spiders. Just like so excited.
It's very,
to eat
it's like
things.
Doug in the Pixar movie Up. They're like evil Dougs because they're just like noise, stings, feast.
I will say, so the ring comes off and he still can hear them. I'm like, I don't know what that's about.
Well, Thorin could started to be able to hear them too. I guess when they get close enough, or it's just when enough of the magic has taken over your mind.
Weird rules, but sure,
like
I'll take it.
Mirkwood itself is magic, and then they fell into the water that they weren't supposed to touch. Well, one of them does,
like
the bomber
triple
does,
magic.
but it's actually they didn't cross at the Grey Bridge where they're supposed to.
I like that his sword is named Sting.
Yeah.
But the story when people ask is it's like, why is your sword named Sting? He has to explain, like, I stabbed a spider and it said that it stung. And I don't know, that's a weird, like, he should just say it's after the singer.
Yeah.
Just like it's Sting. But yeah, I guess that makes as much sense as anything. Good bug scene. Peter Jackson, he loves his bugs.
He does, man.
His giant bugs.
He really loves bugs. Threw him back into King Kong.
Yeah. So this is like from the top because all right, the first half of this fan edit was mostly the first Hobbit film, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so that's wild to think about because what is the next two Hobbit films? They're at least 4 hours.
I mean, at the second one is over 2 hours, and the third one, at least the theatrical version, is under 2 hours.
Okay, so it's about 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 hours and change.
Yeah,
we'll
and
say
I was
even
just thinking
5.
about how that. Yeah, I would say almost 5, being condensed into 2 hours, which is at the start of this I wasn't quite sure. Tom, you hadn't finished these movies.
I've seen the second one once, and I've watched like the first 30 minutes of the Battle of the Five Armies.
The battle is exhausting.
Yeah.
Like even in this cut, I wrote the note, there's seriously going to be more armies. Really? Where it's like once there was 3, I was like, how many more fucking armies is going to show up? Yeah.
It's the Battle of the Five Armies.
I know. But like after 3, I'm like, that's enough. 3 is enough. I don't need more armies.
3, sir. It's 5. It's
I know.
5 armies.
And then the orcs show up, and then here's what I'll say: the 5th army feels really tacked on. It feels like, it feels like
also
I guess
named
Tolkien,
for the singers.
Yep. Yeah, of course. It feels like Tolkien wrote 5 armies, and then he was like nearing the end, and he was like, "Shit, I forgot to add one more."
Me. Sorry,
but they're really because the Eagles, what we talked about in the last one, they're just flying around having fun, and it feels like they saw a war, and they're like, "Let's get in on that. That'll be fun. Let's go grab a bear."
I'm going to assume a lot of it got trimmed out, but in the story, I also seem to remember that they do sort of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I still remember having watched the last film that they did. Yeah, so you haven't actually watched the full version. Did it? You could probably kind of tell what was cut down, I assume.
Yeah, a lot of all the Gandalf stuff is cut out, like we were talking about in the first part of this.
Yeah, Legolas is gone.
You see Legolas for half a second.
Yeah,
he's the one they run into in Mirkwood, and I guess there was just because they run into him with his with an arrow drawn, and there was just no way to cut around that shot, I guess.
Yeah.
So Legolas is there in a blink if you miss him cameo. But yeah, all that stuff with him and Evangeline Lilly, who is also there in a blink and you miss it cameo.
That's who it was. I was like, didn't she have a romance with fuck dwarf?
Yeah.
One of the fuck dwarfs.
One who gets stabbed. We don't even see his brother die.
Yeah.
And we don't see what happens with the White Orc, so we know that stuff's been cut out. We don't see how Thorin was mortally wounded, so I assume that's in the original
There's a whole
film.
Battle up on that.
It feels like there's a fight that got condensed or cut out.
They sort of. We talked about in the last one where it was like you start on this Hobbit and these dwarves, and it balloons out into this bigger story, and then it tried to hone back in on them. But that bigger story was just like less, it was more scattershot than the Lord of the Rings. So that's what I remember they were trying to do, is like, let's make this
just
like
focused,
a personal,
on the Hobbit and on the party's journey, their quest forward. Like, we never leave them in this fan edit.
Yes, we never leave Bilbo. And I was gonna say, this might be controversial. Like, it is a bummer that there's just basically no women in this. And I'm sure the executives looked at the original Hobbit story, and Peter Jackson did, and they said, like, you know, we want to 4-quadrant this. We want to make it more appealing to everybody. And so it sucks that the fan edit has to like basically cut the only woman character that I can think of.
They cut out Stephen Colbert too.
They did, and that's fine. That took me right out when I first saw him.
Oh yeah, it's shocking.
Yeah.
I gasped.
Yeah. It's just like, Jesus. That isn't, he doesn't look like he exists in Middle Earth. He just looks like Stephen Colbert.
Looks like Stephen Colbert, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad he got to be in it though.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm happy for him.
He's a big fan of them Hobbits.
Oh yeah, he loves them Hobbits.
Loves those goddamn Hobbits.
It's all to say that my big controversial take is that I actually also like that they cut out a lot of, like they cut out how Thorin died. They like cutting out the dwarves battles, because basically there's a part where Bilbo in this gets knocked out, and they use that as an excuse to
get him
cut out a lot of stuff.
And yeah, and I'm assuming that's what they used it for in the original film. But yeah, in this fan edit, it wound up being very convenient, I imagine.
And there's something like artistically anticlimactic about him waking up and like seeing like they're dead. You know, like there are people who are dead that he knew. Like actual. Oh, go on.
Oh, I was going to say that is how that's how it's handled in the book. Like all of these. Cool. I mean, that's also how like Boromir's death is handled in the book.
Oh.
They just sort of like, he doesn't spend much time describing fights or battles or anything. He'll just say there was a big fight, and then at the end, Fili and Kili were slain, and Thorin lie mortally wounded in his tent. And then Bilbo goes to talk to him, and that's when they have their little scene together, is as he's dying in his tent.
That makes sense. Part of me hoped there was like a chapter where it was, and then Legolas skateboards down these stairs, and it's really cool looking, and he like shoots some elves while he does it, or some orcs rather. But yeah,
and it looks so sick.
But yeah, I sort of knew in my heart that probably wasn't the reality.
Tolkien is being portrayed by Christopher Lee in this skit.
Damn right he is. I guess what I'm getting at is that
this was bitchin'.
This fan edit like really highlighted more and more to me what the arc of the Hobbit is. Like, what is the story of the Hobbit? What is his strengths? Like, because it's not just the story of Bilbo, it's sort of the origin story for why Gandalf goes to Frodo with the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, he doesn't go to him, but you know what I mean? Like, he entrusts Frodo
it to Frodo, yeah.
Because it's about the origin story, the fact that the Hobbits' superpower is that they're not greedy. Like, they don't succumb to power the way everybody else does, right? And we're seeing that here again, which is like...
Yeah, that was, Tolkien's kind of wishful thinking,
Yeah. Yeah, because the Hobbits themselves are like, they're seen as the most... Like, politically speaking, I guess, in Middle Earth, they're seen as like the weakest. Mm-hmm. It's like
the least consequential. Nobody considers them.
Right, exactly. But and we're seeing this story of like Bilbo sort of using the powers that hobbits have, like influence, like I realize these films are a series of increasing charisma checks for him, because it's like, okay, he has to talk his way out of the ogres, and they're dumb. They're dumb, so he can do it easily.
Builds, yeah.
Yeah, but he can like easily say like, oh, you shouldn't season them that way, and the ogres fall for it. Then he has to talk to Gollum, and Gollum is like kind of unhinged, but is like clever. He knows
the riddle game. There was something that I had meant to mention the previous episode. I love the bit where Bilbo gives him his first riddle, and Gollum solves it pretty easily.
Yeah.
And so Martin Freeman gets this look on his he does this like little small reaction with his face where it's like, he's smarter than I thought he was.
Yeah, exactly.
He was
like,
just
damn it.
Right, yeah, he was assuming he would be kind of stupid because he's Gollum.
He takes advantage. Right, he takes advantage of the fact that Gollum has like essentially a split personality. He has other issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's intelligent, but he's addicted to.
He seems distracted.
Yeah, exactly. But then you get all the way to the dragon, and you realize like not only is the dragon huge, but the dragon is smart. And it has wisdom and perception. And so it's like the final boss for him, which is like, you can't really talk your way. You can't just do cheap tricks.
Right. He's essentially just talking to another super intelligent person.
Yeah. So it's like this increasing challenges for him. And then his final challenge is standing up to Thorin.
Yeah.
Like this. I like that the battle and what happens is like, you know, they've been going on this like fun little adventure with singing, and then suddenly it's like his final challenge is like, this isn't fun anymore. Like you're watching this guy lose his minds due to dragon sickness. Just call it greed.
That's what it is.
Feels
in the story.
Offensive to dragons. Yeah.
I don't seem to remember dragon sickness from the book. I'm far bigger Tolkien heads than I will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, but I think it was just, you know, it's just the old fable, or I hope I'm using that word right, you know, about how gold and money corrupts you. Having power corrupts you.
Yeah, they make him like literally possessed. Yeah, and then he starts to talk like the dragon. It's like space madness. Yeah. If I was
Not
Dragonborn, yeah. If I were Dragonborn, I'd be offended. I would watch this and go, that's offensive.
Yeah.
But I do like that idea of like, I really liked that scene where it's like the elves are out front, Thorin is still holed up, and Bilbo confronts him.
Yeah, all this
and like,
yeah, all the story stuff and character stuff is there because all the party stuff, the Hobbit party stuff in these movies is just what the book is. Like that's all the stuff that Tolkien wrote. Yeah.
And you realize when they cut out the bullshit, you realize that's what's important. Like,
yeah,
I don't need a battle scene. It was just those people talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like Gandalf yelling to Thorin wild that they can hear each other, but like, that's besides the point.
Listen, Gandalf's magic.
Yeah, that's true. And it's just that scene is way more tense than any battle scene. And so like,
yes, when they're finally charging and Gandalf is like, this is madness. Like you kind of like you feel a little bit of anguish for him.
Yeah. And it's like, you don't care about the battle because the battle is kind of for shitty reasons.
It's dumb.
It's just
it's a totally stupid fight that doesn't need to happen. But Thorin is like overtaken by greed, and Thranduil's just an asshole. He just sucks.
Wait, who is that?
He's the Elf King.
Oh yeah, he's a prick.
Lee Pace, yeah.
And then his cousin, is it Dale?
I think so, yeah.
It was Dane. No, the town is named Dale.
Town is Dale.
And I flagged both because I was like, those are weirdly like just dude names. That's just Tolkien looking over at his friend Dale, being like, yeah, I'll name a town after you, Dale. Like, it shouldn't be like Dalewood or Dale Raven something. You know what I mean? Where it's like they all have fancy fantasy names, and they're like, and there's Dale, named for Count Dale.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know. And then, yeah, his cousin Dane. And so,
Dane
okay.
Cook on a warthog, on a giant pig.
I actually have a question about Jerk Elf. Eyebrows Elf is what I called him. What's his deal? So, okay. Hold on.
He's an asshole.
I guess so I've watched Lord of the Rings many times. I've watched Ring of Power. I've watched this.
Uh-huh.
I am kind of unclear about the geopolitics of Middle-earth. What I mean is like Rivendell. I thought I was like, that's the elves.
Rivendell.
But then like Rivendell, sorry. I was thinking of Dale.
Yeah. Always thinking of King Dale.
You're right. But I guess there's different. I guess like there's different factions of humans, right? There's just different factions of elves. That
Oh yeah, these are like the wood elves.
okay. It is weird in this cut because it's like there's a lot of repetition. You realize
They go to places and get captured. That's basically the loop here. It happens like 3 times.
Yeah, they go to like these elves and then these other elves. They go in this cave and then they go in this other cave. They get captured and then they get captured again, like et cetera, where it's like, yeah, it's kind of the same combination of things. What did you think of Lake Town? They cut. There's that dude, the dude who kills.
Breezed through Lake Town, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mind that.
I didn't mind it so much. It was a little confusing. I wasn't sure why the dwarves were in trouble for being there.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that's probably we can get through we can talk about the cuts. There was a lot that I didn't notice. But like I think probably the one that I'm like I see why there's a cut there. But they didn't have the footage basically, which is like they go to Lake Town, there's the boat guy who's sort of a no name. And I know
Bard.
The movies give him way too much backstory from what I remember.
He gets
like
a lot.
The full movies.
Like his ancestor was supposed to have killed Smaug and didn't.
Yeah. And then it cuts to them stealing weapons. And that's the moment. Like you needed a moment where they were showing, like where someone says, like, we're not really welcome there.
Yeah, them
and
sneaking
like, we
into
need
the
supplies.
town or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's clear there was a lot cut there. And then they get caught. And then they sell. But it's like, I think the pacing works, meaning that like,
yeah.
I didn't need to spend a shitload of time in Lake Town to understand and empathize with them. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, we stop at Lake Town, we keep going.
When the dragon comes back and starts nuking people,
yeah,
I'm feeling their plight. I'm feeling their plight.
Oh, you haven't? Yeah, no, you have watched it. You've watched the first half hour. That was cut down. The dragon.
Was it?
It felt. I don't know.
He is not a very long sequence in my memory.
Oh, maybe not.
Like a weirdly truncated sequence in my memory, but maybe it was. Maybe stuff was cut out of it. I didn't notice. So but I've only watched it one other time.
Right. So you mentioned to me that the actual battle in the Hobbit is like a chapter.
It's a chapter, yeah.
And so like this fan edit, I think, is working with what they were given. You know what I mean? Which is like you can't cut down the entire fucking movie. The third movie, and you can't extend the dragon. But it feels like the dragon should have been the thing. You know what I mean? Where like the second one is called the fucking Desolation of Smaug. Like it's like I expected the dragon to be a large part of this story. And this made me realize how it is like literally Bilbo comes out, he joins the dwarves, and they're like, what have I done? And then the guy defeats the dragon, and it cuts back to all of them in the exact same place. And he goes like, "Dragon's dead." It's like,
he fell. Well, that's easy,
right? And you're right. I think even in the longer movies, it felt like, you know, like when like the X-Files does a to be continued, and then it's like really anticlimactic.
Yeah,
it's that
resolve it instantly when they return.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just. I mean, it's weird in the story too, because the same thing happens. Like they finally get to Smaug. He is sort of killed pretty easily after Bilbo has his scene with him,
right?
And then like the finale is the 5 armies, like the fight that gets started by Thorin's greed. Like that's the last or one of the final chapters. I think there's one more after that.
And you're saying they both sort of had the equal amount of like length in the book?
Pretty much, yeah. I think Smaug is a single chapter.
Yeah.
It's not much.
I guess it's weird to me that Peter Jackson looked at those 2 chapters and chose to extend
the fight and not
fight?
And not Smaug.
Yeah. Because I do think that the Thorin's arc is definitely
you need
needed.
to have it because he's the other big arc, right? He's the other character we're following apart from Bilbo.
But it's weird to me that you wouldn't spend more time on the dragon. Like,
I know.
It's part of me is like, the cynical version is like Peter Jackson being like, well, we have all the like technology for army simulated battles. We've done so many of them. Like, that's our bread and butter. Like that feeling of like, well, I know how to do these big army, like these big Middle Earth battles. So let's just focus on that.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
I mean, and like I said, like Boromir's death in the story,
right.
We only hear at like it just is like the fight, and then like the Two Towers begins, and in like the opening paragraph they mention that Boromir was killed in the previous fight, and they say goodbye to him, bid him farewell. Yeah. But so they took that like non-existent story, and in Fellowship of the Ring, they, you know, Boromir's death is like one of the more memorable scenes.
Yeah,
so like he could, yeah. So it's like, why not beef up the dragon? Like,
right, because that was the thing they sort of hyped.
Yeah,
they're like, we got Benjamin Cumberbatch, we got Benjamin Cumberbatch,
you know, Benjamin Cumberbund.
Yeah, and like we got I don't know, like they named one of the movies after it. You know, it was implied to be this big part of it, and it's weird that it just wasn't. I don't know, like it feels like originally it would have been 2 movies, and the first half would be like the adventure getting there, and the second half would be the dragon, mostly the dragon, and then like the battle at the end. That's like, and I feel like if you could like fan edit this to do that, you would, but they just don't have that.
Yeah,
there's just not that much.
Yeah, it just wasn't there in the original films. It's also weird. And I guess this is a Tolkien critique. It's weird that Bard kills Smaug. Like, who the fuck is this guy? We just met him.
See, I liked the Luke Skywalker of that. And like, so it's interesting because they give him way more backstory in the Peter Jackson version, but I kind of liked this version where it's like, okay, it's just some boat scumbag. Like, I wish they had cast him as more of just a regular guy and not like a clear movie star. And like, I liked that idea that like the guy they hire who's just like, you know, it's a Han Solo. That's what I'm getting at, which is like, we need this guy, let's hire him. And then like slowly you realize like this guy seems to have his shit together, and maybe there's like a little more backstory somewhere throughout, but I didn't mind that idea that it's like, oh, and this fucker kills the dragon.
Yeah, that's fair. There is a line still in this cut where, or a bit, the exchange in the square where Thorin is trying to convince Stephen Fry to let him and his party go to the mountain, and right. Bard is like, no, that's dumb. The crowd mentions that like his grandfather was supposed to have killed Smaug but missed, and now they just take dumps on his head all the time now because his grandfather missed.
Right. Yeah, I like that like flavor text. I like that like the idea that there's a million stories in Middle Earth and we're just getting a little bit of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's all we need for him, really. Like I agree, the way he's presented here it's all we really needed for him.
I think so too. And like, again, you'd want to tweak it a little more if you were like writing it. And then I like that he leads to the army, where it's like, that's a natural progression. This cut very much like it I think it works, but this cut, there is like a little more stress on certain characters that this cut has to like at the end. Like, it felt like the ending, you're like, wow, we're not seeing what happened to like the eyebrows elf. We're not seeing what happened to this guy, where it's like, I don't hate that. Because it's Bilbo's story, but it does feel like a little inconclusive just because there's clearly like a lot of stress on those characters. You know what I mean? Like, what did you think of that? Like, I'm almost certain they spent more time wrapping up the battle in the original.
Probably. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. But no, I didn't need to spend any more time with Thranduil. I think he's pretty clearly defined as much as we need him to be. You know, he wants his ancestral jewels back.
Right. And again, I kind of liked I like that they don't wrap that up because it doesn't matter. Because it's just like
It's true, yeah.
it's Bilbo's story.
Yeah, exactly.
Like yeah. I had a question. The barrels. What did you think about cutting most of the barrels?
I didn't mind it. But I
Me neither.
I also didn't mind it being there because The Hobbit is a children's story.
The barrel, yeah, I wasn't.
And this second half, and I mean the story is the same way. Once they get to the end, shit gets real and people die. But the second half of this fan edit definitely doesn't have hardly any humor in it.
Yeah, I mean it's tough.
There's a little
because
bit.
I think
There's a little bit.
Again, they're working with what
they
were given.
Yeah.
And I will say the barrel scene, I remember it being clearly shot on a different like type of camera. Do you remember that? Like it looks way more digital.
Maybe like I said, I've only watched it once. I didn't think it looked particularly good for sure. Yeah, I remember it looking fake.
Yes, but it was done like they did some practical stunts. But like there's some, if you go back and watch it, there's some shots that look like it was shot on like Jackass cameras, like it was shot on like they threw it a digital. It's very interesting because I think it's just how they shot it or something like that. Where, but yeah, I feel like it was a fun sequence, but like if I guess I don't know what the goal of this cut was. If the goal of this cut was like 4 hours max, then it's like, yeah, you're probably going to have to cut things.
I think it's just trimming the unnecessary fat.
Yeah.
And just keeping it moving, you know?
Yeah. And so like,
because ultimately nothing happens to them. They just kind of get bounced around for a little bit. And it's not like, it wasn't like the minecart in Temple of Doom. Like it wasn't an particularly exciting set piece. It was just kind of like a goofy little thing that lasts, you know. So if you're trying to trim stuff out, I can see why you'd cut that for sure. And I assume that's the goal of the cut, right? Because we're like we mentioned in the last episode, it's just focusing on Bilbo and his story and just the stuff that's in the Hobbit book. And all that, it's pretty good when it's just that. So yeah, I think the goal here was just to cut it down and just make it a more faithful adaptation of the story.
It's what we already talked about, but I felt it more in this half, which is that like it's sort of doing the cuts that they should have done in the screenplay. Like going through and being like, well, cut this. Like it's an efficiency cut, but that does take away something that I did feel that was missing, which is like the kind of feeling like you're in the world a little more like world building or mood building. Like you said, this half doesn't have as much humor, but like, you know, like the fucking Lake Town, like it's clear that we were like doing like
race
that cut
through Lake Town. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, if you originally made it this way, you'd be on the boat and you'd have a little more conversation. You'd have a reveal of Lake Town. And then you'd have like a shot of the town where you'd see the people and then them speaking through. You know what I mean?
It's and there's nothing to be done about it because it's a fan edit and you can only use the footage that's there. But it doesn't. The pacing works for the most part, but at other times it needed a bit to breathe.
Yeah. And then there's a little bit of arc issues. Like Gandalf. So Gandalf's whole thing in this is
he vanishes for no fucking reason.
Exactly. And so I didn't mind the idea that he sees this like Eye of Sauron and he goes, I have to go.
Right, and it flashes the Eye of Sauron and he runs off. Yeah, I didn't really need an explanation for why he was gone, but it does seem weird that he was so late. Right.
And so like I was waiting for like the big moment where Gandalf shows up, you know, riding on a horse, being like, stop everything. But he just sort of is there all of a sudden, like, hey. And so it's that where it's like, I'm sure in the longer version, that's a little more dramatic. And since we're following Gandalf, we're not like wondering where the fuck is Gandalf. You know what I mean? Like I think he gets captured at one point in the Peter Jackson cut. Yeah, and he has to like escape, and he goes on his own adventure, and it's exhausting. And so that's all to say, like, I like this version, but what you would normally have is more characters stressing out, like, I wish Gandalf was here, and then you'd give him like a big dramatic here I am. Like, again, Han Solo swooping in to help at the 0 hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because we're cutting Gandalf's story. Yeah, exactly.
Or Yahoo, sorry.
Yeah. But because we're cutting all his POV, like we're, you know, it's like little things like that that are a little off. Or like Thorin's, like, his arc is still tough in this. Like his arc of not liking Bilbo, and then his arc of going mad.
The madness one I do remember, because I did notice a couple of scenes that I thought were kind of important for him that had been cut from Desolation of Smaug and from the beginning of Battle of the Five Armies. It's sort of a lot of him like brooding throughout Erebor, and like the fire underneath the floor starts to kind of like match him being like taken over, I guess, by the greed and the dragon sickness in the movie. It's a flu he got from all the dragon shit everywhere.
Yeah, it just gets in. It gets all up in there. They needed more of a reason.
It felt more. It was more gradual because they had a lot. You know, it was hours of film that was deleted from this cut. So.
Yes. Again, this is the bigger end of the cut. No, I felt like they needed more reason for Bilbo to hide the what is it, Arkenstone?
The Arkenstone, yeah.
Like, because he hides it, and then we get a scene where he talks to one of the dwarves, and the dwarf is like, "Oh yeah, I hope he doesn't find that. It'll fuck him up."
That's Balin.
Yeah. Oh, he is Balin.
He is. He's Balin. But yeah, he's also super dead. You remember that's his tomb that they fight the cave troll in Fellowship.
Yeah, it's cool.
He's super dead, Dave. He gets killed by goblins.
Good for him.
That's his fate, Dave. That sweet old man. We know he's just going to get filled with goblin arrows.
It's fine. It's bound to happen.
Like an elderly pincushion.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
The fuck dwarfs also, they killed them all in this.
Yeah, they got smoked, man.
Every single fuck dwarf.
And I'll say that we didn't see his brother die, but the one fuck dwarf that gets killed, because of the edit, it just felt like we didn't really feel the impact of it. Like he gets stabbed and it focuses on the orc who stabs him.
Yeah, so
and then that's it. Like nobody really mourns him, and we don't really see the impact of his death.
I'm of two minds, because you'd never put this in a blockbuster, but I always like it when death is like seen as anticlimactic or like
very sudden,
pointing out the futility of war. And so there's nothing more futile than like these futile than these characters that we've grown to love dying unceremoniously.
That's
while
true.
Bilbo is like too fucked up to even like focus on it. Had it been done more intentionally, I think it would have come off that way better. But I like that idea that Bilbo is knocked out, wakes up, and it's like, hey, you missed the war. Your friends are dead.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's fucked up.
Thorin's shit's hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the beginning of Saving Private Ryan all of a sudden, you know?
I think Bilbo says ew.
Yeah.
When he sees Thorin's movie, he's like, oh. Anyway.
No, one of the things I think Peter Jackson sort of doesn't do in Lord of the Rings too, and he doesn't really have the obligation to do it in Lord of the Rings, is that the way he shoots the wars is more from a removed perspective. It's more of this like larger strategic view, right? We stick on characters, but they're characters that are like, yeah, we sort of know they're going to be fine, and we're watching them make strategic decisions. I love how the orcs fight, by the way. They fight awesome.
They do. They're pretty sweet.
We have ogres with backpacks, and I'm like, yes, that's what you do.
They give that one ogre the big helmet so he can ram the wall open with his head.
Yeah. Or like gunpowder. Like they're fighting to win. They're fighting to fucking win.
Man. They came to party.
They're like American Revolution fighting. Where they're like, we're getting down and dirty here. We're not getting in lines. We're not like fancy elves. No. We're going to fuck you up. But
yeah.
in Lord of the Rings...
This block-headed troll is our fast pass.
Yeah. In Lord of the Rings, that feels like it works more, right? Because it's a bigger story. In this, I'm like, I kind of want to just see it all from Bilbo's perspective.
Yeah.
Like from like him running through this chaos and having to deal with like this thing that's way bigger than him that he has he's like powerless to affect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he doesn't do that. The Fanedit does it more. But it made me realize like that would
focusing on him by just sticking with him.
Just made me realize that would have been a cooler version.
Yeah. And we mentioned that in the previous episode where one of the things that watching a fan edit does, or at least this one has done for me, is make you easier to explain what it is that's wrong with the Hobbit. Like it makes it more obvious,
right? And figure out what's right about it.
Yeah,
like
what was there, what parts were needed to stay, and what could have gone.
Yeah, because like I don't know, I like how they handle the ring in this. I like the ending. And I know there was more to the ending, but like, you know, having the Ian Holmes narration kick in and having it end where Lord of the Rings begins and focusing sort of on the ring at the end. And again, like what it's sort of all about, which is like why Gandalf realizes that the hobbits, like how he realizes what their power is basically in Middle Earth and in this bigger thing. Like, I feel like that's a really good arc for Gandalf. And then seeing like what greed can do, only to he himself eventually succumb to greed for Bilbo. Like that's a cool arc for him.
Yeah, it makes
like focusing on
makes it even sadder in that first movie, man.
Yeah.
Like, Bilbo, what happened, man?
Focusing on the lure of greed. And like it's wild watching this and thinking like, why did they have a bunch of other horse shit? Like they wanted it to tie into the Lord of the Rings. And what's funny is this cut ties into the Lord of the Rings really well.
Yeah.
Like
without all that
implies,
extra stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I don't know, did Tolkien even intend on The Hobbit to tie into Lord of the Rings in some big foreshadowy way? Okay.
I mean, it's just the story of how the ring came to Bilbo.
Right. But yeah, as a tale of like,
but it doesn't have like also Legolas was there,
Right. But like, I just mean like the higher meaning of like what greed does.
Oh, I'm
to
sure, because that's what Lord of the Rings is about. It's how power poisons you, corrupts everybody.
Yeah. It is about that.
I mean, it's about a lot of things, but
volcanoes,
trolls with blocks on their heads.
Yeah, awesome.
Trees.
Awesome things. Trees. What if trees were people? I love that. Why not? Fuck it.
Yep.
You weird fucker, Tolkien.
Why didn't they show up?
Stoned
Battle
bastard.
with 5 armies. No, I know exactly why they didn't show up.
Again, the last army felt half-assed. Have you watched? I've asked you this a million times. You haven't watched Rings of Power?
No, I haven't.
There's some trees in that.
Oh, word.
Yeah, you can get some tree action, some more tree action.
Sweet, man.
That.
Some hot bark up in me.
Yeah, this one, this isn't a spoiler or anything, but it makes me realize what the dilemma with trees are, which is that like you think about where Middle Earth is at, and like there's society that really needs wood, like to survive, to live. And then like imagine if you really needed wood, but the trees were like, get that axe away from me, motherfucker. And it's like, okay, I don't want to kill you, but we have to work something out here. Like,
yeah, we need
we really need wood, man. This is a dilemma.
Just imagine if trees were flesh and bone, and that's what we're building our houses out of.
Right. It's like, what if water could hurt you? What if water screamed when you drank it? And you're like, I need you to survive. Like this is weird. Like you either have to become more of a sociopath or you have to work something out with the resource. But it's like, yeah, we need wood. We need wood. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah,
Like,
I
know
don't think
you're angry.
I don't think those two options are mutually exclusive.
Yeah. But there's got to be, like, I don't know, I guess dead trees, you have to wait for them to die.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wait for them
But then it's like,
some tragic accident to befall a tree.
right. But then it's like, you don't want to build a house of dead wood.
Looks like this one got struck by lightning.
I don't know. It's because I wouldn't want to build my house full of living, talking trees. That would be exhausting.
Yeah. Full of limbs.
Yeah. I guess they'd invest in like stone more, but then I bet the stone's going to have something to say.
Yeah.
You just know the stone's
going to have some input, man.
Yeah. Or you'll get a Belrog. Like you'll that's a whole other problem.
Yeah, man.
That's horseshit.
Then you have to go smite his ruin on the mountaintop.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So by then your whole day's out the window.
Yeah, it makes sense why they can't build like a sensible infrastructure or electricity.
Yeah.
Oh, that gives me an idea, Tom. What if they made a modern day fantasy that's like a cop movie?
Ooh.
And it's like fantasy but modern day.
Uh-huh. That is a good idea.
Yeah.
Somebody should write that movie.
This could be our Star Wars.
Yeah, this is our Star Wars.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
I think so. I'm trying to think of any larger thoughts I had on this. Like I had a bunch of little nitpicky things.
Yeah, I think the last thing I wanted to say is just to echo kind of the conclusion we came to at the end of the part 1. So I wish it was written this way. I wish it had been written this way, you know?
That's really what it is. It's a frustrating to watch edit because you're watching it and you go like, yeah, I like, this is more efficient. I wish it was on the page so they could have finessed it a bit more. Like as a fan edit, this is great.
It's pretty solid.
It's taking like 7 hours and condensing it to 4. And that is a hard thing to do. And it does it, I think, as good as you can do that, you know?
Yeah. There's simply not much other footage they could have used.
Yeah.
Except for some of the scenes with Thorin that I mentioned. But,
yeah,
you know, this edit is trying to keep it focused entirely on Bilbo's point of view. So,
yeah. Couple quick thoughts. Shit goes wrong when Gandalf starts whipping ass. Like, I love it when Gandalf starts whipping ass with his cane.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's run out of spell. Like he needs a long rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's out of cantrips.
Yeah, he's like, I guess I have to just hit people with this cane. This cane is, in fact, also a cane.
I have a sword!
My other nitpicky thing is dwarves. Apparently, they really give up on riddles way too fast.
Oh, yeah.
That fucking last light riddle, they don't get it. They crowd it. They block the light. And then they're like, we don't get this. And they seem to just leave and walk like a mile away. They're just like, fuck this, we're gone. They're gone. They give up in like a minute and they're gone. Did
dwarves strike you as the riddle solving type?
No, I guess not.
Yeah. That felt pretty authentic.
No, I'm not saying it's a plot hole. I'm saying I'm mad at them.
Oh, yeah. They really do give it all up pretty damn easy.
I was watching screaming like, give it a second, guys. Give it a fucking second. Just, can you sit for a moment?
Like Thorin leaves. Like, really, dude?
He throws the key down and it's like, guys.
You haven't been able to shut up about this.
Yeah. It's like someone can't, like, it's like when like a boomer parent can't use the computer and they're like, it's broken, and walks away and you're like, just fucking wait a moment. Jesus Christ. Give me a second to see what's wrong with it. I might just have to fucking install some firmware or whatever.
Yeah, we might just have to wait for the last moon.
Right.
Of Durin's Day.
Yeah. And that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know how the riddle counts day. We could probably go. We could probably stop.
I mean, I don't know.
It's The Hobbit, folks.
It was.
I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
Tom, are you going to try to watch the last movie?
I don't know. I may attempt to watch the full Peter Jackson trilogy again sometime in the future.
You got the gist.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. I'm curious to see the rest of it, though.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on it. I remember it being exhausting. I remember the third one being the most exhausting, the most filled with pandering stuff, where like more Legolas skateboarding, basically.
Right, because they're trying to turn like 6 pages into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah. And I remember it being simply exhausting, but it probably has some fun little moments here and there. All right. Well, thank you, Max.
Thank you.
Max, Logan, Boyer.
Both
back
for
again.
producing this podcast and for making this edit.
Yes, thank you for both. And if people want, again, B Max Logan, I recommend this cut because it really does. If you're sort of like lost on the Hobbit films, like if you were disappointed
or if you're like me
moments,
and just haven't been able to get through them.
Yeah, they're really good it really does. It did improve it for me. Like I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, check that out. And check out our Patreon. That's what this was through. Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. GAMEFULLY unemployed. There you can get custom podcasts on there, but for just $5 a month, there's exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. We also watch movies every Friday night with our patrons. So you can hang out. You can hang out, watch stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. It is fun.
It's fun.
We haven't watched The Hobbit.
Yeah.
We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So check that out. Leave us a review. Subscribe, and also subscribe to our new show. Follow our new show, Batical.
Yes, please do. Like and subscribe wherever you get podcasts.
Wherever you eat your podcasts.
Someone should do a fan edit of the Hobbit cartoon. Boil it down to 1 minute.
It's just
really,
a single
really
minute.
shorten it.
Yeah,
Yep.
60 seconds.
Yep. Or stretch it out to 3 movies.
Right, yeah. Go back and make the cartoon 7 hours.
Yeah, just slow it down. Really slow it down, I guess.
Yeah.
Just tick those frames.
It already feels 7 hours long.
It does.
That fucking cartoon.
That movie. Let's go watch that.
No.
Hey, listen, our music is produced by Chris Corlew. You can find him on twitter.com as the Corlew or go to shipwreckedsailor.bandcamp.com. Our channel artwork is produced by Michael Vincent Bramley. For more of his work, go to mvbramley.art. Our episode artwork is by Justin Brown, available on Twitter as Justin T. Brown or at Artness by JustinBrown.com. And finally, additional artwork is by Starlene Hodge. You can find her work at StarleneArts.com or on Twitter as StarleneX. Cool. Goodbye.